Business District. So,
This meeting is called to order in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. This meeting has been included in a list of meeting dates sent to the Home News Tribune, the Star Ledger, and the Highland Park Planet on January 3rd, 2019, and was posted on the bulletin board of Borough Hall, 221 South Fifth Avenue on January 3rd, 2019, and has remained continuously posted as required by law. Fire exits are to my left and to my right. If you come up to speak, please speak into the microphone, and assistive listening devices are available. Roberta, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Brill-Mittler.
Here.
Councilman Fine.
here.
Councilwoman Foster Dublin. Councilman George.
Here.
Councilman Hale.
Here.
Councilwoman Kim Chohan.
Here.
Councilwoman Welkowitz.
Here.
Borough Attorney.
Here.
Borough Administrator.
Here.
Okay, so this evening we have a brief presentation. I'm sorry.
Who the speakers are.
Okay. We have a brief presentation tonight from the folks who are working on the Millbrook cleanup, Susan Edmonds and Vaughn Scully. So if you don't mind coming up and telling us what's going on.
Hello. Is this on? Do I need to,
You have to speak close to the microphone.
like that?
Yes.
Yeah? Awesome. Hello. Thank you for your time. My name is Vaughn Scully. I am a watershed ambassador for AmeriCorps. It's a national service organization, and my program is directed to engaging citizens in the health of their local waterways, so the Millbrook being the most important in Highland Park. And we have a multi-site volunteer cleanup organized for May 12th, Mother's Day, at 10 a.m. until 12. And this is an entirely voluntary cleanup. All of our wonderful partners, including Highland Park and the LRWP, we will be hosting two main sites where we will ask volunteers to congregate. And then we have some auxiliary sites that my colleague Susan Edmonds can answer questions about later if you're interested in knowing more about the residential sites, because the two main sites we're focusing on are public property, Johnson Park and John Marshall Elementary School. Oh, and yeah, the Millbrook in those areas, that's where we'll be focusing our efforts of picking up man-made trash. And after the cleanup is done, we will have a celebratory picnic in Johnson Park Grove 2. So I'm here today to thank Highland Park for their support so far in our planning, and also to ask for some assistance in advertising the cleanup, recruiting some volunteers, and also for the picnic, we are very interested in having local restaurants and catering businesses potentially donate food for us. And of course, we will be happy to advertise them as sponsors of the entire event, of the picnic. So any assistance in that regard is highly appreciated.
So Yvonne, I'm going to ask you to reach out to Harry Glazer, who is our public information officer.
Okay.
And he can help pull this together with you.
Perfect. Yes. Thank you so much.
Sure.
And are there any questions from the council about our plans so far? No?
No, Vaughn, just thank you for inviting me to the planning meeting that we went to with Lower Raritan Watershed, and I did pull a list of some of the property owners. I did walk that area of the Millbrook out by Brookline next to the car wash, which is fairly steep, so that's going to be an access issue, but also to scope out how many houses were there that we want to talk to. We may need to talk about what's the real scope of the cleanup in that area, but otherwise, thank you very much for moving it forward.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Yeah. And like I said, Susan can answer more of the questions about those auxiliary sites. She knows a lot more about that. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not going to go into a lot of detail right now unless you have particular questions, but just to say, as Vaughn said, that the majority of the volunteers will be organized to the two main sites that are public property, and then some of the intermediate sites, which are all along the south tributary of Millbrook, are there's the site that Councilmember George spoke about, which needs more discussion, but we can do that another time, and another site. But I want to assure anybody on whose property Millbrook runs that nothing will happen there on your property unless you have been notified by the borough. So if there are no more questions, then that's.
Any other questions from anyone on the council?
But I would encourage anybody who knows of restaurants whom we might approach to get in touch with Vaughn, and he's going to leave some flyers on the table, and they have contact information for him.
Yeah. You can also work with Harry on the restaurants.
Okay, great. Wonderful. So much. Thank you.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular and conference meetings held January 15th, 2019, as distributed?
So moved.
Second.
Borough Clerk?
You can do all in favor.
Okay.
You can do all in favor.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, we're going to move on to council reports, and I'm going to start with Councilwoman Stephanie Kim Chohan.
Sure. Little bit what's going on over in senior services at the community center. Tomorrow is our last day for free tax preparation from 9:30 in the morning to 3 p.m. at the community center. This service was provided to our Highland Park residents that made less than $65,000 in 2018. Our April luncheon will take place on Tuesday, April 16th at noon, and kosher meals are always available upon request. Another free event over at our community center. Free eye screenings available to the community on Thursday, May 30th, starting at 9:30 a.m. in the Highland Park Community Center. Must call or stop by the office to register, and limited spaces are available. And this is open to the public, any Highland Park resident, ages 3 and up. Please make sure to check out our Facebook page for upcoming activities, events, and trips. In rec, our summer camps are starting July 8th. Day camps, sport camps, and teen camps. Register for 1 week or all 6. And reminder again, early care starting at 7 a.m. this year. That's a new service that we added on for 2019. Summer camp jobs are posted on the Highland Park Borough website. Please apply by May 3rd. And flag football and baseball games begin this Sunday. Girls on the Run began last week. Track and field begins April 8th. And spring soccer begins April 16th. Register for the Theater Fireworks program, musical featuring songs from The Greatest Showman. And space is still available, and the performance will take place at our annual fireworks at the Donaldson Park on July 3rd. Adult classes begin this week. Our volleyball is full. And the men's basketball, women's basketball, and soccer on the turf is still space available. Registration is still open for many of our spring programs. Please see the website or our Facebook page at Highland Park NJ Recreation. Over in the Arts Commission, this Thursday, the Fluxus Art Jewish Chicken Farmers presentation will take place at the Highland Park Library at 6 p.m. this Thursday, April 4th. There will be an artist discussion at 6 p.m., followed by a viewing of the film at 7:30 p.m. The Arts Commission will also co-sponsor, along with the Arts Collective, Open Studios this year, which will take place on May 19th. The Historic Commission will be meeting this Sunday, April 7th at 1:15 p.m. at the Highland Park Public Library. And last but not least, wishing our community that celebrates a blessed Palm Sunday. And that is my report, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Hale, do you have a report?
No report tonight.
Okay. Councilwoman Welkowitz, do you have a report?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few things. Last weekend, Highland Park welcomed a class of graduate students from Rutgers-Blaustein School of Planning and Public Policy. They were assigned to activate some intersections in downtown and increase foot traffic and interest. I was particularly interested to see the students engaging directly with the residents. They were getting feedback on the installations and the other kinds of quick and inexpensive activities we can create in the future. Special thanks to Professor Leanne Von Hagen from Rutgers, Laura Torchio from the nonprofit Project for Public Spaces, and to all of the grad students who did a great job in understanding our borough and our needs. Remember, the students will be out again this Saturday from 1 to 4 at the corners of 3rd and Raritan and 4th and Raritan. You might still see the blue sails that have been installed above the seating areas. So they also had some activities like chalk painting some benches. So there were activities for kids, there were activities for well-seasoned artists. It was a fun time, and we hope to see you again out this coming Saturday. And last week, our consultants who have been assigned to the borough through a Department of Transportation grant project presented a draft of a new pedestrian and bicycle plan to our steering committee. They'll be working with us on establishing more of this draft proposal. We expect the final to be out sometime around June, and we'll present it to the public then. They looked at different neighborhoods and try to come up with a comprehensive plan. There's lots of overlays, and it's going to be it's a long-term project, so there might be some quick things that we can do. And in fact, Acting Chief Panicella just said that they're doing a lot of striping and signage on 2nd Avenue right now. Starting soon. So we're trying to make all of the sidewalks and roadways safe for everybody, pedestrians, bicyclists, and cars as well. Thank you.
Thank you, and I want to tell you and congratulate you and your committee on the wonderful weekend that we had. Councilwoman Welkowitz.
Thank you for coming up, by the way.
Yeah, it was great fun, and I got to vote. I never get to vote. I got to vote. Is it going to be both Saturday and Sunday this weekend?
This weekend, it's only going to be on Saturday.
Only on Saturday, okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Fine, do you have a report?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mayor. Tonight I would like to address the 2019 municipal budget and a resolution that is on the consent agenda for consideration this evening. So I'll begin with the municipal budget. The municipal portion of Highland Park residents' tax bill is about 27% of our residents' total tax bill. The municipal budget that will be introduced this evening by our clerk contains a 3.95% increase to the average assessment of a household in Highland Park. There may very well be amendments to the municipal budget over the next few weeks. On May 7th, there will be a full presentation of the 2019 municipal budget, and I encourage all residents to attend that presentation. As to the resolution, so tonight the council will be considering a resolution in support of Assembly Bill A3818. and amending the Senate version of the bill, S2173, which will clarify statutory exemptions from mandatory immunizations for students and would remove the religious exemption as a reason public and private school parents can refrain from having their children vaccinated. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention has found that nationwide there has been an increase of kindergartners that have received an exemption to state mandatory vaccine policies, the majority of which were for non-medical concerns. New Jersey's exemption rate rose in 2017 to 2018. In the past 5 months, there have unfortunately been measles outbreaks in New Jersey. On March 14th, the Highland Park Board of Health unanimously passed a resolution in support of Assembly Bill A3818 and amending the Senate version of the bill S2173. As to the constitutionality of this legislation, it should be noted that in 2018, California's mandatory vaccination law was upheld by the Second Appellate District Court of Appeal in Los Angeles, which found that the law did not violate freedom of religion or the right to an education by requiring virtually all public and private school students to be vaccinated against contagious illnesses. It cited a 1944 United States Supreme Court ruling in Prince v. Massachusetts that refused to exempt a religious group from child labor laws, which stated that the right to practice religion freely does not include the liberty to expose the community or the child to communicable disease or the latter to ill health or death. I encourage all Highland Park residents to contact our elected representatives in the New Jersey State Senate and Assembly to adopt A3818 and amend the Senate version of the bill to protect our health and well-being from vaccine-preventable disease. Finally, I urge my fellow council members to vote in favor of the resolution, which is on the consent agenda this evening, to support state legislation that will remove the religious exemption as a reason parents can refrain from having their children vaccinated in New Jersey. That's my report, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Fine. I just want to iterate that tonight, because of statutory requirements, the council will be voting on the budget for 2019. However, that budget may change before our next meeting, right? Okay. Borough Administrator, do you have a report?
Yes, I have a few items.
Oh, I'm sorry. Council President Phil George.
Thank you, Mayor.
I have to start that way, so I'm always looking this way.
Just a few things to update. As everyone has noticed, Public Service Electric and Gas tore up our roads last week and has already finished most of the repaving. The restriping will take place during the week. Thank everyone for giving them the space in the room to get the job done as quickly as possible. And we did get some nicely repaved roads. I just wish they would coordinate the roads that need to be repaired with the gas lines to be repaired, so we didn't have to pay for it. This is not strictly speaking public service, but our public works. But we have recently circulated the first of our draft ordinances for electric vehicles in Highland Park, the ordinance which amends the zoning code to allow for electric charging stations as accessory uses in all but one of our zones. As soon as it's fine-tuned in the administrator's office, and the borough attorney will be circulating it to Sustainable Highland Park and the Environmental Commission for further comments. There will be further electric vehicle-oriented ordinances coming in the next 2 or 3 months to make it a comprehensive code, referring it to the master plan for long-term planning as well. In our capital planning, we're looking at least one electric vehicle to replace one of our aging gasoline fleet vehicles, both because of the maintenance as well as the environmental concerns. The Environmental Commission is meeting is scheduled tomorrow night, April 3rd, at the Environmental Center at 8 p.m. There'll be a discussion on that, on the electric vehicle ordinance as well. And the Meadows Trail crew will be reporting on their start of their work and the condition of the trails as well as the observation platform, which is now complete in the Meadows Trail area. DPW is continuing site work intermittently for their portion of a removal to get the site ready for the PSEG solar farm. Sustainable Highland Park, as everyone has seen, has gone to some of the stores. The countdown clocks are in front of the stores. The plastic bag ordinance will go into effect in a little less than a month. Congratulations to all of the members of Sustainable Highland Park who got this moving and are also dealing on a regular basis with all of the merchants going around and citing how they can comply, what the requirements are, and getting them ready, making sure that they're coming into compliance. The Earth Day celebration is scheduled for April 28th at the Environmental Center from 11 to 3. In past years, this has grown to include music, events, displays. Once again this year, the Sustainable Highland Park is cooperating with the Art Commission to design posters around the theme of water and what people can do practically and without a lot of complications to preserve our water resources of all kinds. The Shade Tree Advisory Committee is continuing their work. They also got a grant for native species. I believe it was 50. I saw Ms. Borough come in. Rosie, was that 50 dogwoods was part of the purchase this year or the grant? Yes. And they'll be giving away saplings and small plantings. Although my persimmons didn't take too well last year, they'll be available for people to pick up. And finally, the Native Plant Sanctuary. You may have noticed driving down River Road, the construction equipment. The county is installing some large receptacle chambers in the area that are required for the septic routes in that area. We met with them several times. They've been very helpful. They did a drone survey of the area to show exactly what's done so we know what to remove for planting. They'll be cooperating with us and removing some mature planting and also helping us replant as well. So that's all my report. Thank you.
And Councilwoman Foster Dublin could not be with us tonight, so I've asked the officer in charge, Lieutenant Panicella, to give us the police report.
Good evening, everybody.
You have to talk close to the mic, please.
Good evening, everybody. How about now?
Good.
Good? Okay. Between March 1st and March 31st of 2019, we've answered 1,488 calls. Out of those calls, the notable calls, ambulance calls were 78, assaults were 4, burglary was 1. Burglaries to motor vehicle was 8, CDS arrests were 5. Criminal mischief reports were 3, disputes were 24, harassment complaints 14, missing persons 2. Motor vehicle accidents 26, Narcan saves 3, noise complaints 13, robbery complaints 1, shoplifting 1, theft 12, welfare check of adults 28, a total of 19 arrests, 5 of those were warrant arrests.
Okay. Thank you, Lieutenant. Borough Administrator.
Yes, thank you. Just to piggyback on 2 words that Councilman George mentioned. First was drone. Yeah. A survey is a trigger word. As some of you may have seen, we put out a notification today that there will be a drone survey of the borough tomorrow to help us count the deer in town. They'll be concentrating on the wooded areas, either around Donaldson, the Meadows area, along the river, and in the Rutgers Ecological Preserve and Johnson Park. And I'm pleased to report that both Rutgers and the county have agreed to chip in on the cost of the survey, which was just confirmed to me today. So that's been a very good experience working with our neighbors, and we'll be reporting back on what we learned, as well as some recommendations and alternatives on the deer management question at a public meeting, but we were strongly advised by the state Fish and Wildlife folks to have this survey done to inform the decision-making of the borough moving forward. So we should have the results within a couple weeks of this flyover. You know, they'll give us a report on what their findings are. So thank you for that reminder, Councilman. And the other item that he mentioned was the plastic bag ordinance going into effect starting May 1st. We have been doing outreach door to door to merchants. I'm actually setting up special meetings with the larger vendors like Stop and Shop, Quick Check, Rite Aid, with their management so they understand what we're doing, why, and they can effectively communicate that with their teams so they can answer resident questions better when they're at the checkout aisle. So we're working on that. And we're also working on some resident outreach events, including some bag giveaways, as well as that will be also at Earth Day, but also trying to think of some creative ways to do some kiosks in towns where people can take a bag, league of a bag, and help each other out and help us all retrain ourselves to bring our bags when we shop throughout town. I do want to mention, I know the borough attorney will give a little update on what's been going on legally with regard to the Buck Woods effort, but tonight is introduction of the zoning overlay for the Buck Woods property, which some of you are familiar with, and I wanted to announce that we will be having a community meeting on April 9th, which is next Tuesday, either here or at the community center. I'm just trying to confirm the actual venue, but at the very, I know this space is available, but we might want to do it over there because it's a little more accommodating. And it will be an opportunity to get a full presentation on the proposed zoning, ask questions, and talk about potential amendments. And just to reiterate, then the planning board will also have that opportunity at their upcoming meeting, and we'll be chewing on all of those recommendations and making amendments as necessary before we adopt. So I just wanted to make sure you got April 9th on your calendars if that issue was something you wanted to be a part of. And the meeting will be at 6:30 p.m. Couple things, we also talked about road projects. I get this question a lot, and I know so do the mayor and council regarding the roads, and I wanted you to be aware that there are several road improvements out to bid right now, because our team at DPW does not do the paving work for us. We've got funding from the state to do North 3rd between Raritan and Montgomery, Hilton Street from Woodbridge to Lewis Street, Maryland Ave from Raritan to roughly the Irving School parking lot. Those of us who pick up our children there know exactly that spot. And South 7th from Woodbridge to Magnolia Street. So those are improvements that should be coming online within the next few months once we award that bid. The other related improvements that are in that bid package that are currently out are improvements to our 3 parking lots, including the library, South 3rd Avenue, and the Farmers Market lot as well. So those will all be forthcoming. And we're also improving the crossing on South 3rd across at Magnolia Street. So those will all be bundled into improvements to be implemented soon. And lastly, just a gentle reminder, the water and sewer bills, the grace period ends this Friday, so if you haven't put your payment in yet, you still have till Friday. Just keep in mind the Borough Hall closes at 1 p.m. That's it for tonight.
Thank you. Borough Attorney, do you have a report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As the administrator mentioned, later this evening, the council will consider for introduction what's called the Buck Woods Overlay Zone. This is the last step that the borough must take in order to have its affordable housing program approved by the New Jersey Superior Court. There is a final compliance hearing scheduled for June the 14th here in Middlesex County. With us this evening is Chris Cosenza, who is the planning consultant for the borough and the primary scrivener or the preparer of this ordinance. And the ordinance will provide, as required by our settlement agreement, to not have more than 75 multifamily dwelling units built on the Buck Woods property by the owner. Chris can certainly answer any questions if they come up during the public comment this evening, but the development will be concentrated on what's called the northern end at the end of 6th Street, and we will try to keep the rear of the property as undisturbed as possible. The slopes ordinance will have to be adhered to. There is an aggressive tree replanting element to the ordinance, which will require, as best we can, the reforestation of the clear cutting that's already taken place on the property. This is an ordinance that the borough has been directed to adopt in order to finalize its affordable housing obligation and avoid future builder remedy litigations, and the borough would be well advised to do that, and I think that's why the council is moving ahead. The opportunity that Terry mentioned to come to an informal meeting a week from now, either here or across the parking lot, to learn more about the proposed ordinance is one that I would encourage everyone to take advantage of. Chris has been invited to come along. We have some sketches of what the bulk regulations, what the regulations in this ordinance will require, so that there won't be any surprises when and if the property is developed under the overlay ordinance. So tonight is not the public hearing. The process is to introduce the ordinance by title this evening. We can certainly take a few comments during the public session. You'll have plenty of an opportunity in an informal setting in a week to do the discussion with the staff, and then the formal hearing would be 2 weeks from tonight, or the 16th, and that would be the public hearing on whether or not the ordinance should or shouldn't be adopted.
It's May 7th.
It has to go to the planning board first.
I'm sorry, May 7th. It has to go to the planning board first. You're correct. So the public hearing would be on May 7th, and we would reinforce that, I guess, next week when we meet. We'll remind you that the public hearing is on the 7th. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Council, could I just inquire, just for the public, there'll also be another public hearing at the planning board, correct?
That's correct. As the council president points out, the process for a land use ordinance is to have it introduced by the governing body and then be referred to the planning board for review and comment. I believe they meet the 10th of this month?
11.
11.
The 11th of this month?
Thursday the 11th.
Thursday the 11th. So another opportunity, if the public wants to come to the planning board meeting, this will be on their agenda. And this will give an opportunity for the planning board to give comments, the matter to come back to the council, and then the public hearing would be held on the 7th of May. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Just, I wanted to mention, in case you didn't see it, at the front, there's a copy of the proposed zoning overlay as being introduced tonight at the table, as well as the illustration that was referred to, which you can take away. And they're also available, at least I know the ordinance language has been posted on our website as well. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that it was on there.
Okay, thank you, Borough Administrator. All right, I have some things to bring you up to date on. You heard the Borough Administrator, Terry Hovier, talking about the road repairs that are out to bid for this year. And I'm happy to tell everyone, I just got notification from the State of New Jersey's Department of Transportation that we've been awarded another $596,550 for road repairs in the next round, and they will include Cherry Street, South Park Avenue, and South Adelaide Avenue. So I was very happy to see that. I also want to let you know that we will be sending some of our police officers to attend the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Training on Implicit Bias later this month in Atlantic City. Additionally, this spring, we are pleased to host 2 Rutgers students as interns here, Anna Lee and Rose Kostakak, in the mayor's office, my office. They've been working on a few important projects. You can see their efforts in the new flyers around town that talk about what is and is not recyclable, in posts on the borough's Facebook page about new businesses on Raritan Avenue, which, by the way, we've had a whole bunch of new restaurants open up in the last few months, so I hope you'll take advantage of them. I'm having a hard time keeping up with all of them. They're all so delicious, and I don't want to overdo it. Their efforts can also be seen in how they've been raising awareness of the ash borer infestation of our ash trees, and in the developing plans for a how-to plan for a college program for our teenagers. They've been working very closely with the staff at Borough Hall and at the Zone 6 Teen Center, and with volunteers on the Shade Tree Advisory Committee. I really admire their energy, their creativity, and their enthusiasm. So I want to share their work with all of you, and if you see any college students running around town with flyers for us, say hello to them. Those are our interns. I also want to take a moment to thank the hardworking members of my mayor's Teen Advisory Council. They've been working closely with me and the borough on a number of issues that are important to them and to the town this past year. We've been addressing with them the Bring Your Own Bag ordinance, the ash borer infestation of our ash trees, the Zone 16 Center, and other matters. They enlisted us to assist them with the DECA Club and the DECA Dash in the fall. And they held their own fundraiser in conjunction with RWJ University Hospital to raise money to support people who cannot afford to purchase the medications that they need. At our recent meeting last week, the members of my Teen Advisory Council served as beta testers for a new online quiz developed by the New Jersey League of Women Voters to educate young people about voting. So I'm very impressed with their work. I will continue working with this particular group throughout the rest of the year. And I hope that if you have any ideas that you would like to share with the Teen Council, we'd love to have you come to our next meetings, which I believe are posted on the borough's website. If you can't find it there, feel free to call Harry Glazer, who is my aide. The Councilwoman Kim Chohan mentioned the recreational camp. I want to let everyone know that HP Gives a Hoot, which is the fund we created recently, a few years ago, to help provide lunches for our children who would not otherwise be getting to eat lunch when school is closed. It's grown over these last few years, and HP Gives a Hoot does provide scholarships for our very popular recreational camp. So if you know of anyone who might have young children that want to attend the camp but can't afford the price, please have them reach out to the schools or to our rec center, and we can provide them with applications. I also want to just update you on some of the progress we've been making on our acting chief and acting captain and mentor searches. Basically, we've been going through the interview processes. I really want to thank the Equity Committee for the work that they did with us in the interview process for the mentor position. And we're hoping to be able to inform you of the decisions in the next week or so. Correct, Matt?
Yes.
Okay. And that's my report for tonight.
Excuse me, Mayor?
Yes.
Can I just, the Department of Transportation award that we got for $590,000?
Yes.
I believe that's more than twice as much of what we got last year.
Yes.
So thank you. Great job. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're about to go into our first public discussion session. I want to remind everyone that this is a total of 15 minutes. Each person who comes up has 3 minutes to talk, and I'm going to ask the borough administrator to do the timing for us, so we're fair to everyone. If everyone has 3 minutes, we can have 5 people come up and talk now. I do want to let you know that the second public comment session is not timed, so you have more time to speak at that point. So if anyone has anything they'd like to say now, could you please step up to the microphone and let us know your name and address? Anybody? Okay. Mr. Gross? No, not until you start talking. Take your time.
Good evening. My name is Herb Gross. I live at Adelaide Gardens. very shortly, in this state, in every state, and in every city, coast to coast, the veterans will be launching a Poppy Day sale. In Highland Park, it has been a long time since anyone has seen a veteran at the Stop and Shop, but this year we have sat down with the top officials of Stop and Shop, and many of the Stop and Shop top officials are 100% behind us. There are veterans in Stop and Shop that are going to give us full support, and we would like everyone to please cooperate. When you see a veteran selling the poppies, the Poppy Day sales are for all veterans and veterans' needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gross, I have fond memories of my grandfather taking me along with him to sell poppies and raise funds for the veterans when I was a child. It's a wonderful program.
It is one of the greatest programs that the veterans have, and I'm glad to be part of it. And I hope to be at Stop and Shop with the Poppy Day affair, and I hope to see everyone there. Thank you.
Thank you. Please state your name and address.
Kathy Corton, 235 Better Street. Can you hear me? As you're putting your budget together, I hope that you give some serious thought to the Highland Park Library. I feel that the library has been neglected. I'm really happy to hear that the parking lot's being improved. I was there this morning and the computers were covered because the roof is still leaking. I'm a member of a book club in the library, and as I was casually walking out, I thought, let me look and see how many people there are here today. And there were I counted 22 people at 11:30 using the library, and they were all adults. And there were probably children with mommies and daddies in the children's section. I didn't really look in there. But it's well used. And it's my understanding that the library gave up some of its money last year because it was needed elsewhere, and I really hope that money goes back to the library. I'm concerned about money here in Highland Park. I'm a public school teacher. I'm concerned about the public schools in Highland Park because I know that we have a lot of kids leaving the schools to go to charter schools, and the money goes with them. And so I have ideas about that, but I don't want to take all the time now. I also am concerned about all the building that's going up here in Highland Park, the $650,000 townhouses, and I wonder, is there affordable housing there? Is there affordable housing over at the Senecal? Is there affordable housing at the Castle? Is there affordable housing in all the new areas that's been built off of Cleveland? I just feel that I don't know about the affordable housing rules here in Highland Park, but I do feel that we need affordable housing in all the areas in Highland Park, and I hope that's going to happen. The last thing I want to say, I know this is terrible, I'm a public school teacher, but our school system is getting smaller, and maybe we need to think about regionalizing with another school district, because Princeton did it and they're doing fine. That's my last thought.
So thank you for all your comments. I just want to address a couple of them. So in terms of affordable housing, we do have requirements here in Highland Park. Any new development that goes up is if it's a for sale unit, is required to have 15% set aside as which is affordable housing unit. Yes. Yes. And also, if it's a apartment, it's required to have 20%. The other thing is, as you probably are aware, The Borough Council and I have nothing to say or to do with the schools. So if you have suggestions for them, the best thing to do is go to the Board of Ed meetings.
Okay, I was on the board in Highland Park for a while, so I know about that.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
I just thought I'd throw it out here since I'm talking on my.
Okay, thank you.
Well, excuse me, Mayor, I want to just correct something.
Okay,
So
go
I don't want to opine, but just, the school system is actually larger than it's been in the past.
But there are still children leaving to go to charter schools, and the money goes with them. That's the way it is.
Oh, you don't have to tell me about charter schools, but that's okay. But actually, there's not as many going to Greater Brunswick, which was a draw in the past. I think you mentioned Princeton. Are you talking about the?
Princeton regionalized. I used to teach in Princeton, and Princeton Borough regionalized with Princeton Regional School District. It was one big school district.
Okay.
It was a brilliant idea. A way to provide a lot more for the students.
Okay.
And Mayor, I do want to, because she asked about the affordable housing.
Yes.
Those applications sit right there on the desks at the clerk's office. I've made copies and gave them out to folks as well. For those $650,000 townhomes, they also have affordable housing, the castle as well. They're right there at the desk.
Thank you. Okay. So we'll move on now. Clerk, could you please report on introduction of cap rate exception ordinance for consideration of passage on first reading by title?
Calendar year ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank has been introduced in writing by the Finance Committee for consideration of passage on first reading by title.
May I have a motion to adopt or reject and advertise the ordinance on first reading by title?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Councilman Fine?
Yes.
Councilman George?
Yes.
Councilman Hale?
Yes.
Councilwoman Kim Chohan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Welkowitz?
Yes.
Okay. Clerk, could you please report on introduction of the 2019 municipal budget and tax resolution for consideration of passage on first reading by title?
Be it resolved that the following statements of revenues and appropriations shall constitute the municipal budget for the year 2019. Be it further resolved that said budget be published in the Home News Tribune in the issue of April 12, 2019. The governing body of the Borough of Highland Park does hereby approve the following as the budget for the year 2019. General appropriations within caps for municipal purposes, $13,262,179.02. Appropriations excluded from caps for municipal purposes, $2,856,780.21. Reserved for uncollected taxes based on estimated 99% of tax collections, $200,000. Total general appropriations, $16,318,959.23. Less anticipated revenues other than current property taxes, $3,218,608.01. Difference, amount to be raised by taxes for supportive municipal budget, $12,637,368.34. Minimum library tax, $462,982.88. Water and sewer utility revenues, total water and sewer utility appropriations, $4,903,123.99. Notice is hereby given that the budget and tax resolution approved by the mayor and council of the Borough of Highland Park on April 12, 2019. A hearing on the budget will be held at Borough Hall on May 7th, 2019 at 7 p.m., at which time and place objections to said budget and tax resolution for the year may be presented by taxpayers or other interested persons.
Okay, may I have a motion to adopt or reject the 2019 municipal budget on first reading by title?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Fine?
Yes.
Councilman George?
Yes.
Councilman Hale?
Yes.
Councilwoman Kim Chohan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Welkowitz?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to add to that, the clerk read off the 400,000 something plus dollars that we're required to give to the library. For those of you who spoke about the library, please know there's an additional 600,000 for the library that's included in the municipal budget. Okay. Clerk, would you report on introduction of financial agreement ordinance for 31 River Road for consideration of passage on first reading by title?
An ordinance of the Borough of Highland Park, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, authorizing the execution of a financial agreement with 31 River Road Urban Renewal, LLC, with respect to the 31 River Road redevelopment area, has been introduced in writing by the council as a whole for consideration of passage on first reading by title.
May I have a motion to adopt or reject and advertise the ordinance on first reading by title?
So moved.
Do we have a
Second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Councilman Fine?
Yes.
Councilman George?
Another step forward in our redevelopment plan is moving forward that we've been working for years, yes.
Councilman Hale?
Yes.
Councilwoman Kim Chohan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Welkowitz?
I'm very excited to see this move forward. I know we've been working on this for most of the year, and maybe even some of last year. It's a big step forward. It signifies our willingness to work with developers to create something that we think is modern and will satisfy the needs of the new population that we hope to move here. So I say yes, and just also that we will have public meetings on this, so stay tuned.
Okay, Clerk, would you report on introduction of the overlay zoning ordinance for consideration of passage on first reading by title?
An ordinance of the Borough of Highland Park in Middlesex County creating a multi-family residential overlay zone has been introduced in writing by the Economic Development and Planning Committee for consideration of passage on first reading by title.
May I have a motion to adopt or reject and advertise the ordinance on first reading by title?
Motion to adopt?
Second,
Roll call, please.
Councilman Fine?
Yes.
Councilman George?
yes.
Councilman Hale?
Yes.
Councilwoman Kim Chohan?
Abstain.
Councilwoman Welkowitz?
I'd also like to say that I'm delighted that we're moving ahead on this too, as this is part of our co-obligation. This will also make it to our planning board for another public hearing. And so, yes, motion to adopt.
Great, thank you. Okay. This is okay. May I have a motion to adopt or reject the resolution to approve the emergency temporary appropriations?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Fine?
Yes.
Councilman George?
Yes.
Councilman Hale?
Yes.
Councilwoman Kim Chohan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Welkowitz?
Yes.
Thank you. Before I move on to the consent agenda, the Borough Administrator corrected me on a budget number. The library gets not 600,000, it's close to 600,000, it's $545,000 on top of the first statutory amount, so that's in the budget for now. It's not an increase over, no, and I can't, we can't have discussion, like, you can come up later and ask. Okay. May I have a motion to adopt or reject the items on the consent agenda, number 16 through number 26?
So moved.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Councilman Fine?
Yes.
Councilman George.
Yes.
Councilman Hale.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kim Cho-Han.
Yes, I have a comment. I'm really excited to see the resolution to approve the 2019 AARP Livable Communities Program grant. We met with the mayor. The mayor has been, she gets her AARP magazines and she like cuts out articles for me to read because I have Council on Aging in my I actually chair, it's in my portfolio, and I actually been going on the website and thinking about, future and aging and all the seniors here. And there's some really good articles in there that I share with my husband. It's like, it's really good. So I'm glad to see that we're on that list and for that grant application. So thanks, Mayor.
I'd like to thank Councilwoman Cho-Han for taking care of us seniors. Thank you.
No, I hit a milestone this year too, so you start to think about those things. So yes.
Councilwoman Welkowitz.
Yes. I am appointing George Heibel to the Cable TV Advisory Committee. Say hello. May I have a motion to confirm?
So moved. Confirm.
Yeah.
Second. Okay, roll call, please.
Councilman Fine.
Yes.
Councilman George.
George, we look forward to your programming. Thank you. Yes.
Councilman Hale.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kim Cho-Han.
Yes.
Councilwoman Welkowitz.
Thank you, George. Yes.
Okay, clerk, would you report on the election of volunteer firefighters?
Received report from the Highland Park Volunteer Fire Department of the election of Leonardo Perez Meza as a volunteer firefighter and Gerald Garcia Rincon.
Okay. May I have a motion to confirm?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Fine.
Yes.
Councilman George.
Yes.
Councilman Hale.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kim Cho-Han.
Yes.
Councilwoman Welkowitz.
Yes.
Okay, we're ready to start the next public comment. So if you have something to say, please come up to the microphone and state your name and address.
It was Bickard 307 Magnolia Street. Can you hear me?
Barely.
Yeah, I had a hard time hearing you.
Oh, that's good.
But I have to put my mouth on this, and that's not very appetizing.
We're working towards
That's
a
a
better
brand new.
system.
Good.
That's brand new.
I would like to propose, when you do some of the street repairs, like my Magnolia Street, put a speed bump in there too. It's not a racetrack. And I'm serious about it.
Yeah. Well, there's mixed reporting on speed bumps, and there may be some other traffic calming devices that we can look at. I don't know if Lieutenant Panicella, you want to talk to speed bumps at all? No. Okay. But we.
I'm not crazy about it, Mayor.
Yeah. But if Magnolia is an issue, then maybe we can look into some other traffic calming devices there? Okay.
I mean, some of them come, especially in the evening hours between 6 and 8, at such speed, they can't even come to a stop. They just keep right rolling on. On South 3rd is the between Magnolia and the next block over. There's this big apartment building.
Okay, South 3rd apartment building, Magnolia and South 3rd.
People move out. They put stuff, furnishings outside. There's been a sofa and some other pieces sitting there for 2.5 weeks already. It's not the bulk pickup time.
No. So I'm going to ask the borough administrator to follow up with our code people on
And
that.
it's in other parts. I walk all over the borough.
Yes, I see you.
And I see stuff sitting out there.
It's a challenge with all the rental units that we have, but we need to come up with a solution,
Yeah.
or at least some sort of disincentive to the property managers to just leave it there.
And it is bulk pickup happening this week on the south side, tomorrow morning, on the north side, excuse me, and next week, correct?
It's
On the south
we
side.
are up for next week.
Right, but you know, if anybody should see that, just give us a call and we'll send our code people out. It's sometimes difficult for us to catch that too. Thanks.
Well, I tried it last week to call, and I got a recording telling me to come in person or send a letter or something to that effect.
Can you look into
There was
that,
nobody
Terry?
available to answer the
Yeah,
phone.
we'll look into that.
I see a lot of younger kids riding bicycles now that the weather is nicer. No helmets. We used to do that. Good idea to
Yeah.
promote it again.
Yeah, maybe you can talk to the PBA about that again.
Can you read my handwriting?
Thank you, Mrs. Bickard. Please state your name and address.
235 Benner. Taxes $10,800 a year, substandard lot, no garage. The reason I bring that up is because my next question is about, are we getting money for the borough from the $650,000 townhouses and all the properties off of Cleveland that are new, and the castle and the Senecal? I mean, I heard a rumor that we were giving them breaks, you know, like the Amazon break, and they didn't have to pay taxes for a
Okay,
while. Is
so
that
do me
true?
a favor, no, don't listen to rumors,
Okay.
okay?
Well, that's, you know,
So-
have to, that's why I'm here to ask.
Yeah. So, just so you know, I don't know the number for this year, but in prior years, when one of the first developments opened on Cleveland Avenue, there was an incremental $500,000 in revenue to the municipality. So yes, there is revenue that the municipality does get from all the new development. I
And
don't know,
we're getting
borough
it, and we're getting
administrator.
it now, we're not getting it in, you know, it's not postponed.
We're
getting
no,
it now. The other question, I think I heard the borough administrator, you said something about a disincentive. And didn't you just say something about a disincentive? I live on Benner, around the corner from the corner of South Second, where there has been a gas station that has been totally unused for several years. And behind that gas station, there's a little convenience store that closed a couple of years ago, and it's never opened again. And I just wondered, could we have some kind of policy in Highland Park where if a person leaves their property unattended, I think snow wasn't shoveled either in front of that gas station, but that was one of my book club members that told me that. But you know, I think, could we have some disincentives for people who just kind of sit with really high rents and just let the place sit empty?
I've spoken with the Borough Council, and we're going to be looking at an abandoned property. Basically, it's abandoned property ordinance for commercial properties. We have one for residential properties, but we have to address the commercial properties.
So, do we have them, or do they have to be created here in Highland Park?
No, we would have to create one.
We have to create it. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Hello,
Marcia Goldberg, 451 South Fifth Avenue. I'm here to talk about Buck Woods, of course. First, I just have a question. Is there going to be a presentation by the planner this evening? Is that what I understood from
Borough Administrator?
That was not what
No.
I'm sorry if my email was construed to be that. The presentation, the full presentation, was slated for the 9th.
Okay. So,
he's here to just ad hoc answer questions.
Yeah. Well, I'll save the question specific to the plan for the next meeting, but the neighborhood meeting. But I do have one sort of general question. So I've looked at the planner's plan, and of course I've looked at the developer's plan, and there is miles and miles of difference between them. And as I understood it, a few weeks ago, the attorney was in some discussion with the developer. And so is that the plan, that there's going to be some negotiation with the developer? And do you expect to find common ground here?
The answer is no. The plan that is being introduced under this ordinance is the plan that Chris Cosenza, who was our planning consultant, prepared. There were some discussions with the developer for a period of time. There have been none for some time now, and there won't be any future. We'll prepare the ordinance. Chris has put the ordinance together after doing a study of other multifamily developments in town. And those recommendations that came from Chris are those that appear in this ordinance, not any negotiated numbers with the developer.
And Borough
So
Attorney,
what has to-
wait, one second. Borough Attorney, could you please explain what the courts have told us to do, why there's no longer conversation about it?
Well, the court, as we said earlier, has directed that if we want to get our affordable housing plan approved through 2020, this is the last step, is to rezone Buckwoods for overlay 75 units. So you would think that the effort that we earlier made to work with the developer might lead to, and not a compromise, but might lead to an ordinance that might work on both sides. We had that hope and that expectation, and of course, that was dashed when certain activity took place on the property. So when that occurred, we went to the court to say, it's our ordinance, it's our property, it's our town, and we're going to develop an ordinance which we know will work, which we can defend if it's challenged, and it may be, and that we're going to create an ordinance and ask the council to consider introducing it. And Chris in his office has worked on this probably for the last month, trying to fine-tune it to get all the elements in there that we wanted to get in there. And this is what I call a homegrown Highland Park ordinance put together by your professional staff.
Okay, so my question is, if the developer doesn't like this ordinance and doesn't want to develop according to it, he could just leave the site the way he's left that gas station because it's the same owner, right?
Well,
And would
in
you
other
still
words,
be
if he
would you-
abandoned...
No, sorry, I just want to finish that. Would you still be in compliance if he did that by June, whatever it was, and then you be off the hook and then he'll just leave the site? Is that a possibility?
Well, we would still be in compliance with what we have to do. We're going to do the ordinance. There are bonds posted for tree replacement under the tree replacement ordinance. So if he abandoned any development plans and walked away from the property, we would trigger the bond. We would demand that the trees be planted. Obviously, they can't be specimen trees like were there before, but we would require that the property be reforested.
That would be after the site remediation.
After the site's remediation, that's correct.
And as I understand it from some documents that I got from the borough administrator today or yesterday, the deadline for that site remediation is 2021.
I have to pull my email up.
Yeah. I mean, it could be years before it's remediated. He hasn't done anything with it right now. And that leads me to my second question, which is, well, I've been asking, since this for a long time, what the testing and remediation consists of, which seems to me that is a question that should have been answered before the permit was granted, but I won't go over that ground again. And it still has not been answered. And for those of us who are like literally on the edge, hanging over that property, it seems very important to get that answered very soon because, well, with the next storm, say there's another Sandy, I guess we're not in hurricane season, but say there's another big storm, things could really change in that site. So let me try to find a short way to say this.
Marcia, can I ask the attorney something based
Yes,
on what you
sure.
were asking? Borough Attorney, can you confirm that he can drag this out to 2021? Is that what?
Well, Terry followed up with the NJDEP, that's our Department of Environmental Protection, to find out what they knew about this cleanup and the testing. And they got back to say that, for example, A LOI, letter of interpretation, was issued last week about the presence or the lack of presence of water on the property.
Sorry, issued by the DEP?
By the DEP, right? Similar to the one that was issued before, saying that there are no wetlands on that property. Okay, we didn't make the call, they did. And then we inquired about how the process would go forward, since we're not getting any information from the owner. And they don't have to share that with us. The LSRP, licensed professional that's in charge of this cleanup, is now in charge of the property. So the LSRP for the owner is the one that designs the next steps. Now, we all know that you're waiting to find out what's going to happen next, and so are we. Our LSRP has been in touch with and is in touch with the LSRP for the owner, asking for a courtesy, if you like, LSRP to LSRP, to advise what are the next steps. When are they going to move in? When will they do the testing? Where will it start? Et cetera, so we could share that information with you. But it's not required to be given to us.
Yeah, it would have been good to ask that quite a while ago, but it's good that you've asked, and there's no obligation for him to answer that, obviously.
There's no obligation to answer it, and we could not have conditioned our tree removal permit on finding out about their remediation plan. It doesn't work that way.
Well, I wonder if you could have conditioned it on protecting adjacent property owners' property. And it's all water under the bridge, but I do request that the borough hire some sort of professional to assess the property adjacent to this site, now, because I think a lot of us here need to know what is likely to happen to our property should it stay the way it is, which is really, it's like a dangerous zone right now. I don't know if you've seen it. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
So, Borough Attorney, did the engineers give you a professional assessment of what could happen to the properties adjacent to the site when he went out there?
Well, the borough engineer has been out to the site now several times, along with the borough's LSRP. They've inspected the property. My understanding is that they're satisfied, our engineer is satisfied that the property is stable. So it's stable. That's my understanding.
As it currently is.
As it currently is. It's stable.
But it's stable today, but what is the likelihood that it will remain that way, and for how long? That's what I need to know.
Well, we're going to monitor it.
You can't monitor it and wait for something to happen. That's what's the problem all along, has been just reacting to things that happen. I would like to know what is the likelihood of something happening before it happens, so we can prepare. No, there are ways. This is not an unreasonable. Is this a reasonable thing to request? That's
yes, that is what I had asked of the engineer when he went out there.
And he never responded to me. I never got an answer.
Okay, so I will ask him to get back to you. I didn't know he didn't respond to you, but
nobody has responded to me.
Okay, so I will find out from the borough engineer. It doesn't matter why he didn't, but I will have him respond to you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Angelique Haugerud, 600 South 5th Avenue. Also about Buckwoods. Just a quick follow-up to what Marcia's asking about. Also following up on questions Melanie McDermott, who's an environmental specialist, asked last week to see if the borough attorney or anyone else has any answers to the question about the category of site this is and what kinds of regulations apply to it. We assume it's not a construction site yet. It's an environmental testing site, but there are rules for construction sites. Are there also rules for environmental testing sites stipulating that any runoff from the site is illegal, so that when it rained very heavily, a couple of weeks ago, we could see deep gullies on the hillsides. We could see water running, presumably the Raritan, which would be a violation of regulations I'm familiar with in other states. Can any of you address what types of regulations apply to this site, who's monitoring it? And again, I really reiterate the importance of the questions Marcia has just answered. I hope we're not going to wait for the next storm and go out and see what happened. I would like to see the engineer give us a report, having assessed the properties that bordered the site. All of them look very precarious and vulnerable for all of us. So thanks very much.
Well, there is a Site Remediation Act that covers this property that'll be developed for residential purposes. So yes, there is a law that requires that that property be regulated, tested, and cleaned up. And our construction official, our code enforcement official is familiar with that, and he is going to, he'll probably daily inspect the property to make sure that it's under control. The LSRP, which is the licensed professional working for the owner, is the representative of NJDEP, the state agency. So he has to come up with stormwater management issues. He has to make sure that the water does not spill from this property onto the other properties or go down to the river. Those are all of his responsibilities under the state law. And if we find with our LSRP monitoring that he's failing to do that, he'll be reported immediately to the DEP.
Jeff Vardaro, Wayne Street. I had a question about the...
Jeff, can you talk a little closer to the mic? I'm sorry, it's hard to
even
hear.
closer. Okay. Jeff Vardaro, Wayne Street. I had a question about the 31 River Road property that was voted on first reading just a few minutes ago. Someone, I think it might have been Councilwoman Wapowicz, said that it sort of showed how we could work with developers to get these sites developed, and I kind of got between the lines of that there's some kind of, is part of the financial arrangement with this developer that there's going to be some kind of property tax abatement on that property?
Well, that's one of the elements, but we also are, in the redevelopment plan, we feel that we've been able to negotiate some things that we really want on site and in that neighborhood. We're looking forward to a certain demographic to move in.
Can I ask what demographic?
Sure. It's extremely walkable to New Brunswick from that location. I mean, a lot of blocks are, but that specifically. So there is existing parking on the lot right now, and that will remain. But in addition, we've asked as part of the redevelopment agreement to have bicycle parking, and the plan is to have a bicycle track on the street where we tested one out last year. Those are some of the elements. I'm sorry, I can't remember all of them.
That's okay. I was mostly...
electric vehicle charging stations will be, the wiring will be installed now, even though they may not have the station, but we're working on some of the sustainability items. Thank you, Matt.
So,
and of course, the affordable housing, the
Right.
20%, it's, yes.
So I would like a better answer for you, not that that was a bad answer.
No.
or any answer would be fine.
Okay. Our redevelopment attorney is here, and he's the one that can talk better to the taxes
Yes.
On this program.
Well, before, I'm sorry, if you wouldn't mind waiting just I mean, I just still want to know now that you mentioned the demographic for the second time, what is the demographic that we're trying to attract to that particular
we
property?
believe that people that are commuters that might want a bicycle ride and walk to work or walk to the train station would find these apartments or these units attractive.
And I also want to add to that, as I said to somebody who asked before, included in any new development is a percentage of the units for affordable housing.
Okay, so I did want to know what are the property tax abatements that are part of the financial arrangement?
Do you want to talk to that?
You could
Yeah,
use,
you got the mic.
Joe, you could use this one.
I can usually yell pretty loud too. So first, tonight's the meeting for introduction of the ordinance, and we're going to have a public hearing. At the public hearing, we'll make a presentation, and I'll have with me our financial consultant, whose job it was to analyze the payment of load taxes application, which we had. But in short order, the way that analysis goes is that particular property is currently a building that's commercial. Has to be knocked down and rebuilt. Our financial consultant working with our firm analyzed the costs for the project and the sources and uses of funds to determine whether they could build their project without the pilot. So the way a pilot works is the developer has to prove to the community that but for the pilot, they wouldn't do their project. So we have a financial consultant who provided us with that advice. He'll be available to talk at the meeting as well. And he concluded that a financial agreement is appropriate. The form of that financial agreement is probably too complicated for this particular meeting. because it changes every year. It's over a period of time. There's staged increases that I will certainly get into as a part of the public hearing. And by that point, you'll be able to have read the financial agreement as well.
And if I could ask you, Joe, one of the things that was attractive to the governing body was the fact that this arrangement will provide us with more tax revenue than if we did not go into this, correct?
Yeah, so, I mean, the analysis is, how much would we get? How much are we getting now? How much will the project produce for us with the project? We also look at if the project was paying full taxes, which is a bit of a smokescreen because that's not really an option because, as I said, they wouldn't do the project at all but for the pilot. But we took a look at those numbers too. So we want to share all that with you, and we will. But I think the best time for that to do that is following the presentation, after we speak to the public, and then the professionals are here. You can ask lots of questions, and again, between now and then, you can pick up the financial agreement.
And I know I'm jumping the gun a little bit because we're not at the public meeting to discuss that, but I think by the time of the public meeting, we're going to get the kind of answer that we've gotten on some other issues, which is, well, we can't change it now because we're, this far into the process. So I just wanted to start asking these questions as early as possible. But I'm just so the pilot project, is that one of these things where people don't have to pay property taxes at all on the property for a period of?
No, it's not. I think you're describing like an abatement where you not have to pay taxes at all. No, this is.
But is there a period of time where they don't have to pay taxes?
There is not.
Okay. And is there a dollar figure of?
So it's a percentage of the revenues that they're going to earn.
Okay.
And so it's a formulaic, but there's estimates that we'll have for you.
You don't have the estimates yet, though.
I might. You have your estimate?
I gave it to you. It says.
There it is. I'm sorry. Yes, I did. So in year one, our estimated taxes would be about $96,000.
That's how much we're getting. Is that what you're saying?
That's what the estimated taxes will be.
Okay.
The payment in lieu of taxes.
Okay. I guess I was just trying to look for an estimate.
It's hard
of
to
the
figure
value
out
of what's being given to the developer as opposed to, but it's.
I don't think
it's capable of being analyzed.
Yeah,
in this form,
I don't think you can look at it as what's being given to the developer. If one of the, and Joe, you're better at explaining this than I am, but one of the things that's attractive to municipalities about these kinds of arrangements is in normal tax situations, a percentage of the taxes goes to the state, a percentage goes to the county, a percentage goes to the schools, and a percentage goes to the municipality. In this kind of an arrangement, the state gets.
Well, the state gets zero, but the county gets 5%.
Yeah, and the county gets less. We are keeping the schools at the same percentage they would get if it was normally. And then the remainder goes to the municipality, which would be more than we would get sharing it with the state and a higher rate to the county.
To the county.
Okay, thank you.
And I fully expected to turn the financial discussion over to our attorney.
Hi, Ed Prince, 703 South Fifth. I'm looking at the proposed overlay. Now, I know this is sort of the town's image of it. Nothing has formally been presented, correct?
Correct.
By the developer, right? So this is just hypothetical.
No. The overlay is a graphic illustration of what will or has to happen under the ordinance.
So it's not hypothetical.
It's not hypothetical.
All right, so I'm looking, for example, I didn't notice in the ordinance, I could be wrong, could have missed it. How many parking spots are required minimally and maximally?
I'll ask Chris to come up and maybe grab a microphone. Chris Cosenza is our planning consultant.
Hi, thank you. The project, as we have written in the ordinance, must comply with RSIS. So what that means is that depending on the number of bedrooms in each, if it's a one-bedroom unit, you require 1.8 parking spaces. If it's a two-bedroom unit, it's 2 parking spaces. If it's a 3-bedroom unit, it would be 2.1, which is a state regulation.
So I'm looking at this, and just a quick count. There are 35 parking spaces.
Good catch. So the idea is to have most of the parking underneath the building as a podium.
Okay, so that would be required. In other words, right?
In essence, to be able to build a project, you have to do a podium, and I think even a developer thought of doing that anyway.
I mean, I'm just kind of wondering if I'm building, other than the affordable housing pieces that will go in, if I'm building luxury apartments, why I would have parking? I'd have 35 parking spaces, or approximately 1/3 of the total necessary parking, up to what, 150, 200 feet away from the beginning of the building.
It would be about a total of 150 spaces, but most of it would be underneath the building.
Right, but I'm looking at, for example, the 35 or so that you have,
right,
that the plan includes. So it strikes me as unrealistic insofar as if I'm the developer, I'm clearly not going to have as a selling point, oh yes, you're spending X hundreds of thousands of dollars for the apartment, and you only have to walk 150 feet in the rain and the snow to get to your parking, to get your exposed parking spot. So in other words, either it seems to me, if I'm the developer, I'm going to put all the parking spots underneath, or I'm going to look for some other arrangement, because otherwise, economically, it's a much more difficult sale.
Ed, I'm going to ask the borough administrator.
I'm going to try to reinterpret the planner's point. Maybe the layperson might help. What he means by a podium would be the building would be built on top of the parking, so you could conceivably not have to go outside at all if you had the parking underneath. So I would imagine if I was the developer, I might make guest parking or secondary spots in the outdoor area, but I'm not the developer of the property. But I just want to be clear, the parking would be built underneath on a podium, the units above. So you would assume there would probably be some way to get down there.
Right.
You know, that's convenient.
Yeah, I would estimate it's about more than one per unit is going to be covered and only a few feet from an elevator.
So just wanted
All
to,
right. And
seemed like that was a sticking point.
The other question I have is, under no circumstances will there be any other outlet to the street other than South 6th? In other words, there will be no other building or connecting of streets, or is that still an option that's available? And under what circumstances would that happen?
So I think those are the kinds of questions we hope to get at our open session to discuss the plans, so that, you know, if we get input from residents, you know, that they want other entrances or exits or anything like that, that's when we can adjust the plan to reflect some of the changes that we're all interested in.
Doesn't this have to be done in advance so that the builder knows what he's dealing with? For example, if there's going to be a second entrance or exit at the back, for example, and it would require a different entrance or exit from the side street, he'd want to know if that's going to be built.
This is all going to be done before it's finalized in the courts. Right? This is.
Speak to the roadway in the ordinance, Chris.
Well, the roadway is intended, even as shown on the graphic, is to be one point of access. I'm hesitant to provide a second one because that would disturb more of the site, which we're trying to avoid, as well as it would lead to other paper streets which don't exist, which would require.
Right, and I want to get back to your question about the timing, Ed.
Well, first of all, the intention of the ordinance is to have one means of in and out, 6, okay? We're trying to preserve the rear part of this property as best as possible, that which hasn't already been destroyed. So we're trying to keep that as pristine as possible. So there's no intention to punch through the southern end of this and then take advantage of any paper street that's never been built. But the timing is such that we'll expose the ordinance to an informal gathering next week. You can ask all these questions, and Chris will be there to answer those questions to assure you that the ordinance words will result in that plan. That's the challenge, okay? And then if there are any suggested changes, which we didn't pick up, or mostly Chris didn't pick up, or are good suggested changes, that can be integrated into the ordinance. We would bring that back to the council on May the 7th. If there are substantial changes made to the ordinance, in other words, if there are things that are going to get better, then I would advise the council to reintroduce the ordinance, because you have to by law, and then we would have a final public hearing on May 22nd. And then we would file this ordinance with the court by May 30th, which is our deadline. So that's the timing, and we've backed it up into April, so we have some of that flexibility to share with you tonight what you have, to invite you in to talk with Chris next week about how's this really going to work, to come out on the 7th and testify, to see what the planning board does on the 11th, and then go into the final adoption process.
Just one last quick question. I'm sorry to keep beating a dead horse. Has there been a traffic study of what would happen of a single point access for 75 units, people coming and going at approximately the same time?
No, I don't think we have done that. No.
I haven't done a traffic study.
Will that be done?
The developer will have to do that.
It's his cost.
The
That's what
study I
happens.
understand, but what happens if what happens if the study comes back and it says, no, that's really not a good idea? Then what?
Well, our professional planner has designed these two buildings with the required 75 units so that it's going to work. We believe that the parking is adequate and the movements will be fine. I guess we could go and we could get a traffic study, but we wouldn't have one of those before May 30th. So if we needed a traffic study after we adopted the ordinance, we could always amend it after we got a traffic study. But right now, I think our planning consultant is comfortable and confident that the site can handle the parking and the parking can move appropriately on and off the property.
And that's also one of the responsibilities of the planning board, to look into these things.
Right.
But the constant is always 75 units. We can't vary from that.
Right. Can't go more than 75.
Marion Sackley, South Fifth Avenue. Okay, one quick question. Has their LSRP come to examine the site?
Who's LSRP?
JSX, after the trees were removed, has he been there to examine the site?
I can't say yes, I can't say no. We haven't heard from him, let's put it that way.
Yes?
Pardon me?
It is his responsibility.
Well, it's his responsibility to organize the next steps, would be the testing on the property. We're trying to find out what those next steps are. There's no requirement for that LSRP to share that with us.
However,
We're trying to find out.
our LSRP did go out with the engineer.
Oh, yeah, ours did.
Okay, I mean, the question is, if things are happening on the neighbors' properties, it is his responsibility to be looking at that, right? I mean, how does this...
They're not going to go on the neighbor's property. If they do, call the cops and we'll arrest them. They're not going to go on the neighbor's property.
No, I'm talking about this slope. That's protecting South 7th and South 5th.
Right.
Okay,
And our engineer and RSLSP have been out there. And unfortunately, we didn't communicate that, and they will tomorrow, that right now they believe the property is stable.
Okay, thank you.
Herb Gross, Adelaide Gardens. My remarks are to the council. Tonight, I've listened to you, and maybe it's premature, but about 4 times now you have mentioned that there's going to be a hearing on May the 7th, but you didn't say what time or where it's going to be. I think everybody in this room, everybody on television, has a right to know when and where.
Herb, you're absolutely correct. It's the regular Borough Council meeting on Tuesday, May the 7th, 7 o'clock here. You're right.
Thank you. The other question, Council, I've listened very, very carefully to everybody's remarks here, and everybody has a right to their opinion. I still haven't heard from you, sir, or anyone on the council, or anyone in this room, of these 75 units. Don't the veterans have a right to have at least about 10 of these units for veterans? I haven't heard anyone mention anything about the veterans.
Herb,
we have a right.
Herb, they're probably not 10, because there's probably going to be 15 or 20 in the buildings. But there is a law that gives a preference for affordable housing to veterans. And the person that markets this property will be required to give preference to veterans to live in this property, okay? We'll do that.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more public comment? Okay, seeing none, may I have a motion to adjourn to executive session for police personnel and litigation with JSM?
So moved.
Second, anybody?
Second.
Thank you.